Hello everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about authentic and inauthentic historiology. An idea which comes from Martin Heidegger's Being and Time. So, first of all, what is meant by historiology here? This is not just the science of history, which is historiology, of the historian, but it's also the historiology of the individual. How they construct and explain their own past. Say, your life story is your history. Then there is also the wider sort of public history. Now, authentic and inauthentic being correspond towards the construction of that which is immediately present at hand, sort of like a reaction to stimulus, and the futural sort of clairvoyant or foreseeing sort of construction of being, where one's fate or one's future, what is going to happen, is reckoned as well with the past, what has happened. Now, the authentic version is that which is futural, that which looks forward to the future, because, and this is a topic perhaps for another video because it's too much to talk about, but Dasein, that is the being of man, their being, which is itself also an entity, the being of which is care, or which manifests itself as concern, which is in its essence understanding. This being understands itself in terms of its own potentiality, and therefore a sort of reticent understanding of what is to come always precedes an authentic sort of construction of oneself, where the ego best reflects the self, I guess, where one's understanding of oneself best reflects the actual sort of factical way of being. This also ties in with the idea that Nietzsche said about becoming who you are and whatnot, because it basically implies that there is a factical sort of futural identity, and along with the factual extant identity limited by sort of the environ. And there's a lot to talk about there to explain all of that, but just to keep this video relatively short. So, how does the man who lacks sort of foresight, who lacks sort of a clairvoyance of a kind, construct his own history and understand history? He does so by formulating what is essentially an ideal, which is what he calls the now, der Jetzt. And this now is built around a personal sort of ideal of time, like my time now. It's a now that belongs to the ego. But of course, time does not belong to any one individual. It is always public. It must be counted in with clocks and sundials or calendars and whatnot. There's nothing that can be used to count time which is immediately personal, which does not reflect a sort of natural phenomenon. Of course, all measures that we have counting time essentially come from the sun and the moon, in one way or another. You know, whether it be rotations of the Earth around the sun, or the rising and the setting of the sun, or so forth, so on and so forth. So time is always essentially a public thing, although immediately we start understanding it in terms of personal terms, personal terminology. Now this now comes into play. And this now is essentially an ideal. And from this ideal, a development is created. That, say for example, in ancient times we had the wheel, and then we had the feudal system, and then we had we had the wheel, we had agriculture, and then we had the iPhone or whatever. Or it could be a moral development where we had slavery, then we had women's suffrage, and now we have transgender bathrooms. You know, it could be one of those things. And it creates this idea that we are progressing, or that time develops. You know, human history has developed from a primitive stage to an advanced stage. And you might say, you know, 10,000 years ago, people were living in mud huts, and now we're living in concrete blocks, and this is evidence of a development. But this idea is created by an ideal which we have, which is the developed world, the modern world. If we look at it factically, with a futural perspective, we can say that development will not happen indefinitely forever. We can say that certain phenomena, for example, how capitalism is a system where profits are built upon profits, is a system which is dependent upon infinite growth in a world of finite resources. We might say that it's an inevitability that this system will collapse. And even if you can argue about that, one day, you know, the sun is going to reach a supernova and everything, the earth is going to boil over. The earth will boil up and all life will go extinct one day. So it's evident that we're not going to keep on building permanently. And then, of course, you look at other events, you know, which, you know, to explain away this idea, well, we could constantly progress until collapse, but that's not what's happening. Because you look back at history and you look at, say, the Bronze Age collapse and the collapse of classical civilization, which is the fall of the Roman Empire, which a lot of people don't realize is also the fall of the classical Indian civilization with the kingdoms of India. You know, why were the Indians so primitive when the British Empire came, when in ancient times they had all of these majestic kingdoms? If you're ever wondering about that, well, Indian civilization went into its own dark age when the Roman Empire collapsed, as did Han China, because they were dependent on trade from the Silk Roads and these trade routes with the Roman Empire. All of the most expensive goods came from abroad, as is often the case. And then when those goods from abroad couldn't be brought in, it caused a series of events which led to first economic collapse, then social disorder, then war, and then after war the infrastructure of the society was weakened, and then eventually collapse, you know, civilizational collapse. And then regarding the morality thing, we understand that right now there are more people who are slaves than there ever have been in history. Of course, that's because the Earth's population is much bigger now, but it's hard to say that we've progressed from slavery when Western corporations are relying on either a pseudo-slavery or quasi-slavery, which comes in the form of debt slavery, indentured servitude, child labour, you know, and all those loopholes where, you know, slavery is permitted, or sometimes just literal slavery, like in the UAE, in Qatar, in Libya, and then there's, of course, this under-the-table slavery, like human trafficking, which also is a big thing. And so there's over 1 billion people right now who are slaves, and if you consider the life that people have in China, where your profession is chosen for you, and you know, you don't exactly have much freedom when it comes to how you work and whatnot, that could arguably be considered slavery also. And so you also look back in history again. There have been times when society has lapsed back, one might say, into barbaric and savage morals, and there's also been times when we've been unaccountably sort of benevolent in many ways. Like, think of how English society went through sort of a phase around, I guess, the Edwardian period, where people were more obsessed with benevolent deeds, and that's sort of factored out of the equation later on when everybody had stuff, you know. So the poor had stuff, and so back to the old sort of like old sort of attitude of the class divide and whatnot. Or I don't know, but just to go back to what an authentic historical understanding would be. Authentic historiology would be based upon an understanding of where exactly possibility and potentiality are reconciled. Now, Dasein has sort of an existential crisis, an inherent existential crisis, because we understand that our potentiality, that which we technically are capable of, is limited by possibility. Think, for example, of the mentality that a slave would have. Now, a slave at all points always values his life more than he values his freedom, because if he really didn't want to be a slave more than anything else, he'd just kill himself, right? Or he'd refuse to work and take whatever beating comes to him, because the beating is better than the slavery itself. But of course that doesn't happen, because he values his life more than he values life as a slave more than he values, the life as a whipping boy who's being beaten all the time, so on and so forth. But let's say that the slave understands he has a potential for freedom, that if, say, it was possible for him to be free, he would live in such and such a way. I could say myself, if I was king, I would do such and such a thing, I would behave within this decorum and whatnot, and I would enact these laws and whatnot. But it's not possible for me to be king, it's not possible for the slave to be free. This results in an existential crisis, which results in what Heidegger refers to as falling. The Fallen. And this falling is always towards the public world, to the world of sort of associating with ordinary people, and it could be a reticent sort of publicism, which would take the form of say, for example, eavesdropping on a conversation. Well, that's the analogy I'd give. Then there's also discourse, where you engage in a conversation and whatnot, or where you compare yourself to the world, to the public world, to the world of the other Dasein. But where possibility and potentiality are coherent, where, for example, I say I have the potentiality to lift weights and to train and to become physically stronger, and then there's possibility there. I have weights at home, I have good food to eat, I can get good sleep, and so suddenly the potentiality is freed in a sense. And then an understanding of myself, the man who was physically fit in this sense, who was lifting weights and whatnot for a certain number of time, becomes sort of freed, becomes sort of clear. That this is sort of like a fate which can be actualized, as opposed to some sort of longing for something which may or may not be possible. Now, a person who always constructs his present in terms of the future, who understands where possibility and potentiality are connected, the present which he then has becomes more sort of honest than a man who is focused with consciously looking back, trying to construct a lineage of events leading up towards a certain ideal, which is egotistical, essentially. The ideal of the personal now. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about here, but there's no way I could talk about it all in one video. So I think I'm going to record multiple videos going through similar ideas relating to being and time.